can't even say that these shots have actually prevented. Do you think
Oh,
that? No, is that not it?
no. Guillain-Barré is a deadly disease. Grant, there's 3,100 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome associated after the influenza vaccine.
I guess you've got to weigh the risk reward, right? I'll try to oversimplify this. If, say, it causes sudden infant death syndrome, 1 out of a million babies would get it with, an MMR shot or whatever. And I'm just making up the numbers here. But 1 out of 100,000 babies would get MMR that could die from that. Well, then you weigh the risk, right? But we can't even say that these shots have actually prevented the diseases from occurring. Is that correct? Like polio is a great example of this.
That's right.
The polio vaccine came out, it was already eradicated. But nobody knows that. Nobody even talks about that.
Grant, you're spot on. Not only was it allegedly totally eradicated from the vaccine, which is nonsense. It's public health and measures that we've talked about before. But here's the other thing. There's been nomenclature change. Let me give you an example. The Guillain-Barré syndrome and transverse myelitis. These are like new names for an identical disease that polio was. So, people don't use the name polio anymore. They use, Guillain-Barré syndrome or transverse myelitis. I think a lot of the narrative of the history of not just the polio vaccine, but all vaccines has been hijacked by the pharmaceutical propagandists.
So, do you think that Guillain-Barré syndrome, that's like what you get half your face paralyzed, right? Things like, do you think that? No, is that not it?
Guillain-Barré is a deadly disease. This is a disease that has a very classical presentation. And by the way, I just had a pregnant woman come down with Guillain-Barré syndrome and almost died.
So what are the symptoms of Guillain-Barré?
It starts with paralysis and numbness in the feet, and it goes all the way up to the spinal cord, and you can't breathe, and you die, or you get put on a ventilator. And if my patient survives, she may be permanently damaged.
Do you think?
Very, very important. She got it 2 weeks when she was pregnant after the influenza vaccine. And I went and investigated the government database. Grant, there's 3,100 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome associated after the influenza vaccine. Now, the VAERS database only samples 1% of cases. So, multiply that times 100. We're looking at over 300,000 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome after flu vaccine. And by the way, the flu vaccine is a sham. It's a lie. It needs to be completely removed because why? 75% of those hospitalizations for influenza individuals, they had the bloody flu vaccine. It doesn't work. And Guillain-Barré syndrome is only one of hundreds of complications.
Do you think Guillain-Barré is a form of polio and they just renamed it?
Yes, I do. That's right.
So how do we prove that beyond a reasonable doubt?
Well, I think that any clinician, knows that how do you differentiate a transverse myelitis or a Guillain-Barré syndrome from polio? We didn't have PCR,
right?
Back polymerase chain reaction diagnostics back in the 60s, the 50s. We didn't have that. So, you look at the symptoms of polio and you look at Guillain-Barré syndrome,
Boy, that's
they're identical looking to me.
is anybody else talking about this? Because I haven't really heard that, and I talk to a lot of doctors about this stuff.
I'm sure that other experts like myself have talked about that. I'm certain they have. And you know, if somebody disagrees with me,
well,
contact me.
This is the great thing about you and Dr. McCullough and all the rest of the wellness companies. You're fully willing to debate all these things. Nobody will debate you, though, because you can back everything up with the facts that you've research studied, and that's why they don't want to come anywhere near you to discuss all this stuff. It's also why I don't think you ever get sued by anybody, Doc.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, Maggie Thorpe, JD, and Jim Thorpe breaking that FOIA request and making, you look at me in interviews over the last 6 years. I've blasted them. I've called them every name in the book, and they've threatened my license. They don't dare sue me because they know I'm right. They know they're wrong, and there's a legal process that you know full well, called discovery.
Do you know
and if they get?
We've been doing this for a while. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I ever told you. The first time I ever interviewed you, you came on here and you blasted. And I was thinking, oh, my Lord, I'm going to get sued by all these pharma companies. And you know what? The more I talk to you, the more I realize you're right. The more I talk to the other wellness company doctors and realize, man, we're on to something here. They can't sue because they'd have to give up everything. They'd have to give up. It's called discovery. And God forbid Dr. James Thorpe and your wife got involved in discovery from the pharmaceutical companies. The jig would be up for good, I think.
Yeah, not sure about the pharmaceutical companies. They can't come after me, but the NGOs could. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Board, and I've blasted them. I've completely blasted them. I've called out names. George Wendell, who was the executive director of the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, they sent out a threatening letter on September 27th, 2021. They all colluded, my three organizations, and they said, you will follow our protocol, or you will lose your license in all the states, and you will lose your board certification. That is communism.
Yeah.
That's communism. And I got so angry. Listen, I was an examiner. I was an examiner in Dallas, Texas for the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I've been honored by these three organizations my entire career. And so I tried to get a hold of the executive director. He threatened me again.